And I think we are just live there. So a very big welcome to everybody joining us. My name is Anya. I'm a customer success executive here at Toladata, and I'm joined with Hilda, a member of our product development team at Toladata. If you want to say hello, Hilda.
Hello everyone, my name is Hilda. I do project management within Toladata. Thanks, Aya. Up to you.
Thank you very much. So yeah, we're very lucky to have Hilda join us today. She worked a lot on this new feature. And so this has been deployed this week. And it of course is just an extra layer of security when getting into your account. So we're going to give it another 30 seconds there for a few more people to join. But you may have seen some of our other feature focus series before. We're actually on our 14th episode already. And our next one will be actually next Wednesday. They're usually 3 weeks apart, but with this new feature, we thought we'd have a special episode of it. But as they're 3 weeks apart, our next one is next week with aggregating your impact. And then we're nearly finished the series the following month with a look at the dashboards. So you can always find them back on our knowledge base on our website if you'd like to watch them back. With that, I think we can get going. So as I mentioned today, we're going to be looking at the multi-factor authentication and just look then at the next feature focus, which again is on the 16th of August. During this session, as always, you will have the opportunity to ask questions. So you can either get out your phone now, pop that QR code on your screen, and then throughout the session, ask your questions. Or if you're watching back, you can also always contact us at support@Toladata. Nice. So what is the purpose of the multi-factor authentication? So of course, for enhanced security. So as an org admin in your organization, you'll now have the power to make this feature mandatory for everyone in your organization. And Hilda will show us in the demonstration that there's different settings and different rules that you can set for this, for how often that you have to enter the code to get into your account. But it of course is protecting against those weak passwords. Anybody with a QWERTY password, it is an extra layer of security so that you can get into your account. The second purpose there is, of course, then this leads to the secure data. So you'll know your data is secure with this added layer of security, giving you control over who has access to your organization, giving you peace of mind. The benefits then of this MFA feature, it protects against those weak passwords and also secures anybody working remotely. It's in line with a lot of company regulation and definitely best practice when accessing any accounts. I know even logging in here to this platform that we're presenting on today, we needed an MFA code. And then finally there, it controls your data security and who has access to your data. So this new feature, the part of the Toladata application feature that it sits in, you'll see it's in the admin console. So as org admin, you have access to this admin console, and there will be a brand new tab now where you can access this MFA feature. So I'll be soon handing over to Hilda where she can present the feature. And today we'll be looking at where to locate this MFA feature and how to enable and disable it. And for any questions, I'll just pop this back up on the screen throughout so you'll know where to ask your questions. But you also may be watching back on YouTube, so feel free to contact us at support@Toladata. So with that now, I'm going to pass over to Hilda and she'll begin presenting. Thanks, Hilda.
Thanks, Anya, for that introduction, and I hope that everyone now has an understanding of what multi-factor authentication is and how beneficial it can be for your organization. So now we'll pop right into the org admin. So I have logged in as an org admin for this organization, and I will navigate to the admin console. There, I will see a new tab as a third tab called User Authentication, where we have a new card to the left called multi-factor authentication. This is where you'll be able to set up multi-factor authentication as an admin. The first thing you will see is a statement asking you to enable multi-factor authentication for this organization unit. It is always not selected by default because this is something that you have to opt into. And so what this means is that for every organization right now, it's not yet enabled, and it is upon the owners of the org administrators to enable this for every organization unit, respective um, to your needs. And so we're going to select this checkbox. And once we do that, then we see a couple of questions that we need clarified in order to set up multi-factor authentication properly for you. So we're going to go through these questions. The first question is the multi-factor authentication mandatory for all users of this organization unit? So what we're asking you here is, do you want to make sure that all the users of this organization unit set up multi-factor authentication mandatory for them, all of them, or do you want to leave it as no? And therefore, what this will mean is that they will have to opt in themselves, and it's not necessary for them to set up multi-factor authentication the next time that they log in. So the default right now is no, but if you want it to be mandatory for your organization, please select the yes option. The next question you asked is, which multi-factor authenticator apps do you recommend your users to use? So for now, as Solar Data, we have enabled 3 applications for you. We have Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticator, and LastPass Authenticator. So what this means is that your users will have to have these apps in their devices, their phones, their tablets, and so on, in order to be able to get verification codes and to be able to log into Tola Data using this extra security layer. And so what we need here is for you to select at least one of these applications if you're going to enable multi-factor authentication, and set that these are your preferred authenticators for your users. So I'm going to select all of them for this case, just for now. But again, this, you can either select 2, you can select 3, you can select these 2. So it is at your liberty to select as an organization admin. The last question you asked is, how often are users of this organization unit required to use the multi-factor authentication method to authenticate themselves? So what we need to clarify here is we need to know, for all the users, would you like them to authenticate themselves upon each login? So that means every time that they log in, they will need to add a verification code upon this number of logins. So you can set, say, for example, you would like to for them to be able to log in maybe after 5 logins, that is when they verify themselves. Or probably you might want to say, no, I don't want that, that's too much. Maybe I want them to always verify maybe after 30 days, or after 15 days, or after 2 days. And so this is upon your discretion again. So whatever you set up here is what the users will experience also when they're logging in. And we do have a minimum for every login. So for example, here, for after every login, we have a minimum of 2 logins. And then for days, we have a minimum of 1 day. But if you want them to log in again for each and every login, then you will select the default, which is upon each login. So for now, for this purpose of this demo, I will leave it as upon each login. So now, once you have answered these 4 questions, you have fully set up, you only need to save. If, for example, you're not yet decided, you can always select the cancel button and this will not save. But otherwise, for now, for this demo purposes, I will save so that we can have this set up in our organization. So now you'll be notified that this has been set up in the organization, and you're good to go as the org admin. Now, what will happen if I am now, let's switch context, I am a user, and I have already logged into the application. If I'm already logged into the application, maybe I was adding my indicators, my workflow level 2s or workflow level 1s, then I will see that in my profile section, I now have a new tab. We've also changed this profile page, also for you to know. For every user now, we had it as flat information, that is the user data and the settings all in one page. But now we have made this profile page have 3 tabs, that is respective to the user data. This will only have your user data in this tab. We'll also have the settings tab, which will have any settings that you have for Honor and for Kobo tokens. But also now the new tab for user authentication will appear. Now, if your organization has not set up, if you as an admin, you've not set up multi-factor authentication, then this tab will not be present for all users. But because we've already set up, this is why we are seeing this tab on the profile section. So now, as a user, you will see that this is now called multi-factor authentication, and it states that for this organization unit, your organization admin has enabled multi-factor authentication and has recommended for all users of this organization to use multi-factor authentication. So as I said, if it is not mandatory for your users to set up multi-factor authentication, then they will see this tab even as they're using the application, and they can come here to enable multi-factor authentication for themselves. That is if they're using the application. So if they're not using the application, let me just log out to show you that. Logged out. If I am just coming into work and I have now logging in into Tola data, log in, select that. You can see now when I log in, I see an alert called letting me know that multi-factor authentication has been set up for our organization, and it's asking me, prompting me to set it up. But there are 2 other actions that can happen. If this user, this is only for the mandatory, for the users whose multi-factor authentication is not mandatory. So they will see this alert and they will see an action called never show this again. So if you select this, then this alert will never notify you, and we will you will already have known that multi-factor authentication is available for your organization, and so therefore you will just log in and next time, and you will set it up in the profile section. So if you don't want to see this alert again, if you're already informed, then you will select never show this again. If you want to be reminded later, maybe you don't want to set it up now because you have to quickly maybe add some data within indicators and you want to set it up later, you can actually select this remind me later action, and this alert will show up the next time that you're logging into the application. Otherwise, for purposes of this demo, if I right now want to set up multi-factor authenticator for me as a user, then I will select setup. This will navigate me to the profile page, user authentication tab specifically, and it will I can now select enable multi-factor authentication to set it up. Now, let me explain how now you will set up multi-factor authentication. You do have to have a device. So what will happen is that in your device, in your mobile phone or tablet or any other, then you will download either of these applications that have been selected by your org admin that as the preferred authenticators for multi-factor authentication. If the org admin, if as an org admin you only selected one, then Microsoft is on what that's going to show up here if it is only Microsoft that you enabled. Otherwise, we've also added helpful links for you as a user. You can see 2 links to download from Play Store for Android users and to download from App Store for iOS users. You can copy this link or you can select this link in order to download the actual application into your device. So this is just to help you to see what you can select. So that's the first step. So we will take our devices and we will navigate into the Authenticator app. Let me just do that on my end also. And then the second step is to scan QR code in order to authenticate. So what I will do is I will go to my phone, which is my current device I will use right now, and I will use Google Authenticator for this demo purposes. I'll take my phone and I will scan this QR code that you're seeing here, where my mouse is pointing. Once I scan it, then the Authenticator app has already enabled it on that side of the Authenticator app. Otherwise, if you don't have it handy, or if there's an issue with setting up with the QR code, you have another alternative, which is to authenticate manually. So usually within any of these apps, you're able to go in and set up manually. You can provide these details if they ask you what is the issue, what is the name. The name is usually like what you log in with, which is usually your email, and then there's the key. So you'll need to copy this key and then add it onto the Authenticator app, and that will help you to authenticate manually in case you're not able to authenticate with a QR code. So that's the second step. The third step is to complete authentication. So this is just for us to know as Toladita that you've already done the first two steps. You're good, you're okay on your end for the Authenticator app in your device. So what we will do is once you're successfully authenticated, you'll select the complete button, and this will now finish this whole entire setup. You will see a warning model just clarifying that you're sure and that you have set up and you've done the first two steps. And if you're really sure, you'll select confirm and complete setup. Otherwise, if you're not sure, of course, you can always select the cancel button or select the X icon on top. So for us, because we are very sure and we've already set up on our device, then we'll select confirm and complete setup. Now that that is done, you will no longer see the screen anymore, but you will now see a different version of the screen because you've already set it up and you already have it in your device. Then now the only other two options that you have is either resetting or disabling. I'll come back to that later. So for now, let's log out and see how we will now log in as a user with now the Authenticator app as a second level security item. So now I will log in as usual to Toladita. I'll put in my email and my email address and my password, and I will verify with CAPTCHA. I will log in. You will notice now that you will see this new extra screen. This is now the second level. This is now multi-factor authentication, and this is where you will need your verification code. So what you will do is you will go to your device where you've already set up with your authenticator, and you will take the code that is presented to you. So for me, I'll enter the code provided for me right now, and then I will select submit. And once that happens, I will successfully be logged into the application. Please notice that you will no longer see the alert again. This is because you've already set up multi-factor authentication within your application. This is now successfully logged in, and now this user has the second level multi-factor authentication security part. Now, what will happen now is, what if you lose your device? What if you have an issue with logging in and you now want a new code and you want to set it up again? So we don't set up afresh. Basically what happens is that we call it resetting. If you want to set it up afresh, if you lose your device or there's something wrong with your QR code, then you just can select this reset multi-factor authentication. This will just take you through the same process that we have done to set up multi-factor authentication. So let's see how it works. We'll select this reset multi-factor authentication button. we will see that this is already enabled for us because we do want to enable multi-factor authentication again. We will see the same 3 steps again that we went through. So I will select on my device, I'll pick up my device, select scan a QR code, and I will scan the QR code I can see on the screen right now. And once I do that, then the Authenticator app gives me a new entry for that specific QR code that we've just scanned right now. And then it will give me a new code to access the next time. So what will happen is you can now no longer, you can now delete the one that you had already used on your Authenticator app, or rather don't use the previous already set up code because it will not work. You will now use the new code that you'll be provided within your Authenticator app within your device. So now that we are done, we'll select the complete button and we will confirm and complete because we are sure. And we see the screen again. That tells us that we have already set it up and everything is good to go. Now, the other alternative is, as a user, if you do not want to continue using multi-factor authentication, again, this is only applicable for people whose organization and whose organization admin specifically has set up that multi-factor authentication is not mandatory for this organization. So these users can actually disable multi-factor authentication for themselves. And what this means is that if you disable this, you will no longer be able to have this extra security layer of authentication. And let's see how it works. So if we disable this, you'll see a warning that specifically asks you whether you're very sure about your decision. If you are sure, you select disable. If you're not sure, please select cancel or the X icon. Yeah, so you'll see if you don't select disable, then nothing happens. But if you select disable, then you should see the very first screen that we saw, which is for setting up. Because again, you can set up this multiple times as much as you want. You can always come back and set it up again at a later date. And so once you've disabled this, what it means is now when you log in, you'll just log in using taller data credentials and you won't log in using multi-factor authentication. Let's see if that is what happens. So let's log out. Let's log in as usual. Verify that, log in. And now I will be told that multi-factor authentication is still available for our organization, but maybe for me now, because I've disabled it, I never want to see that again. So I had selected the never show this again part in the alert. Cool. And so that is how you set up multi-factor authentication as a user. That is how you use it. So now I want to shift focus back to the organization admin. And I want us to walk through, if this is mandatory for your organization, what you will do. We have walked through the path of if multi-factor authentication is enabled for your organization, but it's not mandatory. So let me go back to the admin console. As an org admin, we will navigate to the user authentication tab, which we have mentioned is the new tab for setting up multi-factor authentication. And we will see the previous settings that we had already set up. If we want to set it up as mandatory for organization, then we will select yes. Otherwise, we will have it as no, as we previously had it. So right now, let's walk through that path. So I will change it to yes, that it is mandatory for all users, and I will select save. And then I will log out as the org admin. And what we want to see is, as a user, what will you see the next time you log into the application? So let's log in. Let's verify that. Let's log in. Now, when you log in, if it is mandatory for your organization, you can see now, you see a different screen from the way you see it when it was not mandatory for organization. So you see, it's telling you that for this organization unit, the organization admin has enabled multi-factor authentication, and it is mandatory for all users of this organization. So the organization admin is recommending one of these authenticator apps and is asking you to please set it up before you can log into the application. So again, it's the same 3 steps that we talked about, whereby you can see the 3 or however many authenticator apps that the organization admin has enabled. You will see the helpful links to download either from Play Store or App Store, and you will notice whether it is which app exactly is enabled for your organization to set up. So if you won't have already downloaded these apps, you will have to download them either in your device, your mobile device, tablet, or otherwise. And then once you download them, which is the first step, the second step is to scan the QR code. So again, I'll pick my mobile device. I will select scan a QR code on my mobile device within the Authenticated app, and I will scan this QR code I can see right now. And I will see that the Authenticator app has created a new entry for me and is giving me the code that I need to access. Otherwise, as I mentioned before, if you can't scan this QR code for one reason or another, you can actually enter this information manually within the Authenticator app. And if you want to have it handy, you can also copy it to clipboard, maybe send it to yourself through email, or otherwise, then you can enter this information in the Authenticator app and you will have fulfilled the second step. And once you're ready, once you've done step 1 and 2, then you will come to step 3. You will notice at this point, there's no complete button, but instead we will need to provide the verification code in this step. So we will now provide the verification code that I've been given here. If you provide a verification code that is outdated or that is not correct, you will get a validation here and you'll be told that it's the wrong code. Otherwise, let me put in a fresh code that I've just been given. Let me see. Okay, and then I will select enable authentication. Now, you can see I have been successfully logged in to the application. Another difference you can note is we do not see the alert. We do not see the alert because it's not meant to prompt you to go within the user profile because you've already set it up. So for users whose organization multi-factor authentication is mandatory, they don't see this alert, but instead they set it up all the way in the beginning of the process, as you've seen. So now that we've set up, let's log in. Let's see how our profile looks like. You will see the same 3 new tabs, and you will see user authentication there. And you will now see that the difference is that the only thing you can do now is to reset your multi-factor authentication in case you've lost your device or in case there's something wrong with your QR code. But you cannot disable multi-factor authentication for yourself. This is because it is mandatory for your organization. So you can't opt out of it. The only person who can do this for you or who can do this for the entire organization is the org admin. And the only way that they can do that is by either setting it as not mandatory, maybe so that people can disable for themselves, or otherwise disable multi-factor authentication altogether for the entire organization. So that's the biggest difference between those 2 parts. So now, I hope that is clear. So let's go back to the admin console. I'd like to take us through something else, but for now, allow me to, just go back to this. So now I want to explain something here about Authenticator apps. But for that purpose, let me just set this back to not mandatory for the organization. Again, the org admin can keep on changing this at any time that they wish to do that. So you can select save. And maybe it's a good thing. Let's go check our profile and see whether, yes, we can now disable for ourselves. You can see that that is now a difference. But let's just go back to the admin console, user authentication tab. I wanted to show you that if you have only set up, for example, Microsoft Authenticator as your preferred app, maybe you don't want people to use Google Authenticator and LastPass anymore, then you can select that. You can unselect the two and then select save. And you will now see that in the profile, in user authentication as a user, if I come to set it up again, you'll see that only Microsoft is showed as a preferred authenticator. So if you do not want the others to continue being used as authenticator apps, then you're free to do so at any point, and you can disable them, disable them and select save. Now, if you want to also come here to admin console user authentication, and maybe you want to change this, and maybe you're seeing that it's a bit annoying for the users to keep on verifying upon each login, and you want to set up a different setting for this, then you can always change this at any time. And you can say maybe you want them to log in after maybe say 2 logins or 3 logins. You have to choose one of these options, so you select save. And we will see that only after 3 logins will we be asked for the verification code. So I will go back and set up, because I had selected reset multi-factor authentication. So I will go back and enable it again. And I will scan this QR code again. I have a new entry on my device, and I will select complete because I have successfully done the other 2 steps. So I'll save that. And then I can now see that I'm left with 2 options, resetting or disable. And I will now log out at this user, and I will log in again so that the multi-factor authentication takes place. 2, 4, sorry. I will log in as usual to Teledata. Yeah, and because I had already said that I never want to see the alert again, I will not see the alert. Instead, I will navigate to the profile, user authentication, and I will see that I'm already set up. And you can see now, I didn't need to provide a verification code when I was logging in, because I have already set up as an org admin that I only want people to provide verification codes after 3 logins. So that is it about multi-factor authentication. Back to you, Anya, or unless we have any questions.
Thanks a million, Hilda. That was brilliant. It was extremely in-depth. I know everything that I have to know now about the MFA feature. And I've just popped this other QR code up on the screen. If there is any questions, I know we're over time, but just by a minute or two. So we will wait to see if any questions come in. But yeah, that was brilliant. And it is a very straightforward process. I know I set it up myself just using the QR code and the LastPass app, which I'm already using for many other things. So it's pretty straightforward. With that, I might just add this to the screen. So the only question we have so far is the code, which may have been a mistake by somebody, but I'll give it another 30 seconds. And as it was so in depth, there may be no questions. But yeah, thank you for joining us today, Hilda. I know this is your first feature focus, but it was great.
Cool.
So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, you're always welcome back. I don't see any questions coming in. So if there is after this, if you're watching it back, feel free to contact us at support@toladata, or my own email is anya@toladata.com. So feel free to contact us there. And with that, I think we'll say thank you very much for joining us and have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.